I'll never forget the moment my 5-year-old great-granddaughter looked up at me with those innocent blue eyes. We were sitting on my porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Grandpa," she asked, placing her tiny hand on my wrinkled one, "why do you always look so tired? Is it because you're going to heaven soon?" Her words hit me like a thunderbolt, not because she was being cruel, children rarely are, but because I realized how my fatigue, my resignation, my acceptance of decline had become so visible that even a child could see it. I'd been sleepwalking through what should have been some of the most meaningful years of my life. That night, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back at me. When had I decided that life was essentially over? When had I accepted that decline, disease, and dependence were inevitable? When had I stopped living and started merely existing? I'm Dr. Richard Harmon. I've been practicing medicine for over 65 years, and at 91, I still see patients 3 days a week. I've specialized in geriatric medicine for the past 4 decades, helping thousands of seniors navigate the challenges of aging. But more importantly, I've lived through it myself. I've experienced the joys and sorrows, the gains and losses that come with 9 decades on this earth. What I'm about to share with you isn't just medical advice. It's what I wish someone had told me when I turned 60. It's what I've learned from my own journey and from watching countless patients either thrive or decline in their later years. Some sailed into their 80s and 90s with purpose and joy, while others seemed to wither away in their 60s and 70s, becoming shadows of their former selves. You see, many of us have accepted a dangerous myth about aging. We believe that after retirement, after the kids are grown, after we've reached a certain age, life becomes a waiting room. We're just sitting there, flipping through old magazines of memory, waiting to be called to whatever comes next. I see it in my patients all the time. Martha, 67, came to see me complaining of fatigue, joint pain, and depression. "It's just old age," she sighed. "Nothing to be done about it." Robert, 72, once a vibrant school principal, now spent his days in a recliner watching television. "What's the point of making plans?" he asked when I suggested he join a community group. "At my age, the only thing to plan for is the end." These stories break my heart because I know they don't have to end this way. The truth is, many of the symptoms we attribute to just getting old aren't inevitable at all. The isolation, the loss of purpose, the physical decline, much of it stems from choices we don't even realize we're making. Here's what medical school never taught me, what the health magazines don't tell you, what your own doctor probably doesn't. Understand, the fastest way to age is to believe that aging equals decline. The research is clear. Your expectations about aging can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. One landmark study from Yale showed that people with positive perceptions of aging lived, on average, 7.5 years longer than those with negative perceptions. That's a bigger effect than not smoking or maintaining a healthy weight. And it's not just about living longer, it's about living better. The choices you make in your 60s create the foundation for your 70s, 80s, and beyond. I've seen it countless times. The way you approach this decade can quite literally determine whether you'll spend your later years thriving or merely surviving. The good news? It's never too late to change course. I'm going to share with you a simple protocol, a way of approaching your 60s that can transform not just your health but your entire experience of aging. This isn't about expensive supplements or complicated exercise regimens. It's about fundamental shifts in how you live, think, and connect with others. Before I detail this protocol, I want you to know what I'm about to share has helped hundreds of my patients reclaim their vitality, purpose, and joy. People who thought their best days were behind them discovered that they were actually ahead. And it can work for you too, regardless of your current health, finances, or circumstances. The protocol consists of 3 essential elements: purpose, connection, and motion. Together, they form a powerful foundation for thriving in your 60s and beyond. Let me walk you through each one step by step. Step 1. Purpose. Finding your why for the next chapter. The first step is perhaps the most crucial: discovering or rediscovering your purpose. When we retire from careers, When children grow up and leave, many of us lose our sense of why we get up in the morning. This loss of purpose isn't just psychologically damaging, it's physically harmful. Studies show that adults with a strong sense of purpose have lower rates of heart disease, stroke, and Alzheimer's disease. They sleep better, experience less chronic pain, and have stronger immune systems. Purpose is literally medicine for your body and mind. Here's how to find yours. First, set aside an hour of uninterrupted time. Take a notebook and answer these 3 questions. What activities make you lose track of time? What issues or causes make you angry or passionate? What skills or wisdom have you developed that others might need? The answers won't necessarily reveal your purpose immediately, but they'll start pointing you in the right direction. Remember, purpose doesn't have to be grandiose. It can be as simple as being the best grandparent possible or tending a garden that brings beauty to your neighborhood. Next, create a purpose experiment. Choose one activity that might give you a sense of meaning and commit to it for just 30 days. Maybe it's volunteering at a local school, mentoring a young person in your former profession, or taking a class in something you've always wanted to learn. For those with mobility limitations, don't worry. Purpose doesn't require physical prowess. One of my patients, Eleanor, is largely homebound due to severe arthritis. She discovered her purpose by becoming a telephone companion to other isolated seniors. Another patient, James, finds purpose in writing letters to his grandchildren, sharing family stories and wisdom they might otherwise never hear. The key is to start small but be consistent. Purpose isn't found through grand gestures, but through regular engagement with something that matters to you. I remember Harold, a 65-year-old former accountant who came to me with symptoms of depression following his retirement. "I feel useless," he confessed. We worked together to identify his skills and passions. Harold had always enjoyed teaching, but never pursued it professionally. I encouraged him to contact a local community college about tutoring students struggling with accounting. 6 months later, Harold bounded into my office, 15 pounds lighter, and with his blood pressure significantly improved. Those students saved my life, he told me. I matter to them, and that makes all the difference. Step 2, connection, building your circle of care. The second element of the protocol focuses on human connection. This isn't just about having friends. It's about creating a deliberately diverse social network that provides different types of support and stimulation. The science on social connection and health is overwhelming. Strong social ties reduce the risk of premature death by 50%. They improve cardiovascular function, enhance immune response, and even slow cognitive decline. In fact, loneliness is as damaging to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Here's how to build your circle of care. Start by mapping your current social connections. Draw a circle and place yourself in the center. Now add the people you interact with regularly: family, friends, neighbors, service providers. Be honest about the quality of these connections. Are they superficial or meaningful? Do they energize you or drain you? Next, identify the gaps. Healthy social networks include 4 types of relationships: intimate bonds, spouse, best friends; friendship bonds, people you enjoy activities with; community bonds, neighbors, church members; and purpose bonds, those who share your values or mission. Now commit to strengthening at least one relationship in each category. This doesn't have to be time-consuming. A 10-minute phone call to a friend, joining a community group that meets once a month, or volunteering for a cause you care about can all help build meaningful connections. For those who are shy or out of practice socially, start with structured activities where interaction happens naturally. Book clubs, walking groups, or classes provide built-in topics of conversation and regular meeting times. And don't forget the importance of intergenerational connections. Relationships with younger people keep you mentally flexible and provide a sense of legacy and impact. Consider mentoring programs, volunteer opportunities at schools, or simply making an effort to spend quality time with grandchildren or young neighbors. One of my patients, Grace, was struggling with isolation after her husband died. At 68, she found herself alone in a house that had once been filled with family. Together, we created a plan to rebuild her social connections. She joined a water aerobics class at the YMCA, where she met several women her age facing similar challenges. She also volunteered at her church's food pantry, which connected her with both people in need and other volunteers of all ages. Within a year, Grace had created what she called her chosen family, a network of people who checked on her, shared meals, and gave her reasons to get dressed and go out into the world. Her blood pressure improved, her need for sleep medications decreased, and the persistent headaches that had troubled her for years diminished significantly. I never realized how much of my health was tied to having people in my life, she told me. Now I have a reason to take care of myself, because others are counting on me. Step 3. Motion, keeping the body alive. Through movement. The third element of the protocol addresses physical health through movement. Notice I don't say exercise, a word that many of my patients associate with spandex, gym memberships, and activities that feel inappropriate or unattainable at their age. Instead, I talk about motion, the natural, necessary movement of the human body that keeps all systems functioning properly. Your body was designed to move, and when it doesn't, things begin to break down surprisingly quickly. The research confirms what we intuitively know. Regular physical activity reduces the risk of heart disease, diabetes, and some cancers. It improves sleep, reduces chronic pain, enhances cognitive function, and elevates mood. But here's what many people don't realize. The benefits of movement begin immediately and can be achieved with very modest activity levels. Here's how to incorporate more motion into your daily life. First, forget the idea that exercise must be intense or time-consuming to be beneficial. Research shows that multiple short bouts of activity throughout the day can be just as effective as one longer session. What matters most is breaking up periods of sitting or inactivity. Start with a simple goal. Stand up and move for at least 5 minutes out of every hour you're awake. This could be marching in place during TV commercials, walking to the mailbox, or doing simple household tasks like dusting or washing dishes. For those with mobility challenges, chair exercises can be remarkably effective. Seated marches, arm circles, gentle twists, and ankle rotations all improve circulation and maintain range of motion. The key is consistency rather than intensity. Next, identify movement that you actually enjoy. Dancing, gardening, walking with friends, swimming, gentle yoga. Anything that gets your body moving counts. The best exercise is the one you'll actually do, so choose activities that bring you pleasure rather than dread. Finally, create environmental cues that prompt movement. Keep comfortable shoes by the door, schedule walking dates with friends, or set a timer to remind you to stand up and move regularly. These small nudges can help movement become habitual rather than something you have to remember to do. I had a patient named Thomas who came to me with severe back pain at age 72. He had been an avid golfer until his back problems began, and he assumed his days of physical activity were over. We started with a very modest movement plan, just 5 minutes of gentle stretching in the morning and evening, along with short walks around his living room every hour. Gradually, Thomas increased his activity level. He joined a water exercise class specifically designed for people with back pain. He started parking farther from store entrances to incorporate more walking into his errands. He even installed a bird feeder in his backyard, which motivated him to get up and go outside several times a day. 6 months later, Thomas reported that his back pain had decreased by 70%. His sleep improved, his mood lifted, and his blood sugar levels, which had been creeping toward diabetic ranges, stabilized. Most importantly, he regained his confidence in his body's abilities. "I thought my body had betrayed me," he told me. "Now I realize I had betrayed my body by not giving it what it needed: regular, gentle movement throughout the day." Let me tell you about Mary, one of my patients who transformed her life by implementing all 3 elements of this protocol. When I first met Mary, she was 64 and had just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. She was overweight, depressed, and convinced that her best years were behind her. Her husband had died 2 years earlier, and she spent most of her days alone in her apartment, watching television and eating convenience foods. "This is just what happens when you get old," she told me with resignation. "Everything falls apart." I asked Mary to try the protocol for just 30 days. She was skeptical, but agreed. We started small, 10 minutes of walking each morning, joining a weekly book club at her local library, and spending an hour each week helping at an after-school program for elementary students. When Mary returned for her follow-up appointment, she didn't look like the same person. There was color in her cheeks and a sparkle in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She told me about a little boy at the after-school program who ran to hug her when she arrived. "He called me Grandma Mary," she said, her voice catching. I didn't know how much I needed that. Over the next year, Mary expanded her commitment to all 3 elements of the protocol. She found purpose in becoming a reading tutor for struggling students. She built connections by hosting small dinner gatherings for other widows in her community. And she increased her movement by joining a mall walking group 3 mornings a week. The results were remarkable. Mary lost 32 pounds without dieting. Her diabetes went into remission. Her need for blood pressure medication decreased. But more importantly, she regained her zest for life. "I feel more alive now than I did in my 50s, she told me recently. I wish someone had told me earlier that aging isn't about decline. It's about choosing how you want to live. Then there's Robert, a 70-year-old former executive who came to me with what he called retirement malaise. He had prepared well financially for retirement, but not emotionally or socially. Without the structure and status of his career, he felt adrift and increasingly anxious. We applied the protocol, focusing first on finding new purpose. Robert had always been interested in environmental issues, but had never had time to get involved. I encouraged him to contact a local conservation group. They needed someone with organizational skills to coordinate their volunteer efforts, a perfect match for Robert's executive background. For connection, Robert joined a men's breakfast group that met weekly at a local diner. These were men of similar age and background who provided both camaraderie and accountability. When Robert didn't show up one week, 2 members called to check on him, a simple act that deeply moved him. For movement, Robert returned to a passion from his youth, cycling. He started with short rides around his neighborhood and eventually joined a senior cycling club that took weekly rides on local trails. The combination of nature, movement, and social connection proved powerful medicine. 6 months into the protocol, Robert's anxiety had decreased so significantly that his doctor reduced his medication. His sleep improved, his energy increased, and his sense of life satisfaction, measured on a scale I use with all my patients, doubled. "I thought I was just getting old," Robert told me. But I wasn't. I was getting isolated, sedentary, and purposeless. That's not aging, that's giving up. Now, I want to speak directly to those of you who may be thinking, "It's too late for me. I'm already dealing with chronic health issues. I've already let my connections fade. I've never been good at finding purpose." Listen to me carefully. It is never too late to begin. Never. I've seen 85-year-olds transform their health and happiness by applying these principles. I've watched people with multiple chronic conditions reduce their symptoms and medication needs. I've witnessed profound loneliness give way to rich community. I've seen people discover entirely new purposes in their 70s and 80s that gave their lives meaning they never imagined possible. The key is to start small, be consistent, and trust the process. Don't try to overhaul your entire life at once. Choose one small action from each element of the protocol. Purpose. Spend 30 minutes this week reflecting on what matters to you now. Connection. Reach out to one person you haven't spoken to in a while. Motion. Stand up and move for 5 minutes out of every waking hour. These small steps taken consistently create momentum that leads to bigger changes. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. Share this protocol with friends or family, members who might want to join you. Change is always easier with companions on the journey. If I could live my 60s again, knowing what I know now, I would embrace this protocol from day one. I would understand that the choices I made during that decade would shape my experience of my 70s, 80s, and beyond. I would recognize that purpose, connection, and motion aren't luxuries. They're necessities for a life well lived at any age. My great-granddaughter's innocent question that day on the porch became a turning point for me. I decided that I didn't want her to remember me as the tired old man waiting for heaven. I wanted her to know me as fully alive, engaged and present, a man who understood that every day at every age is a gift to be embraced with gratitude and intention. So I made changes. I renewed my commitment to seeing patients, not just because I was good at it, but because it gave me purpose. I deepened my connections with family and friends, scheduling regular video calls with those who lived far away and coffee dates with those nearby. And I returned to swimming, a passion from my youth that still brings me joy and keeps my body strong even at 91. The changes in my energy, my outlook, and yes, even my appearance were noticeable enough that the next time my great-granddaughter visited, she said something that made me laugh out loud. "Grandpa, did you get a new battery? You're not so tired anymore." In a way, she was right. I had found a new source of energy, not from a battery, but from reconnecting with what makes life meaningful at any age: purpose, connection, and the joy of movement. I urge you to try this protocol for just 7 days. What do you have to lose? At the very least, you'll have moved your body a bit more, reached out to someone you care about, and spent some time thinking about what matters to you now. But I suspect you'll gain much more than that. You may discover, as so many of my patients have, that your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond can be among the most fulfilling years of your life, not despite your age, but because of it. With age comes wisdom, perspective, and the freedom to focus on what truly matters. It's never too late to write a new chapter. It's never too late to choose vitality over decline. It's never too late to decide that your best days may still be ahead of you. Try it for 7 days. Your family will notice the difference, but more importantly, so will you. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If you found value in what I've shared, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Remember, we rise by lifting others. Until next time, this is Dr. Richard Harmon wishing you purpose, connection, and joyful movement in this precious chapter of your life.